Yo, what up, though? Welcome back to another episode of Q Reviews. Man, it was a slow weekend at the movies this weekend. Spider-Man No Way Home was the #1 movie, and that came out all the way in December. So I decided to catch up on my TV. So I went to the juggernauts, HBO Max, and now Amazon Prime with The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and HBO Max, The House of Dragons. So I'm caught up on both now. I believe Rings of Power now has 2 episodes, and House of the Dragon has 3. Now, I'm gonna get this straight up out the way. I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I've seen the Peter Jackson movies. I have not read any of the books. I do not know the lore. I went into the Rings of Power as a casual viewer. Like, okay, they spend like $1 billion, okay? So everything should be on point. I will say this, the spectacular beauty of Rings of Power, all that money shines on screen. Their intro is actually better than the House of Dragons intro. And I love that old school Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying, going through there. But I think the Rings of Power on a technical level, using all those particles and nanites, just looks more crispy and clean, and it's fucking epic. So I give it that. But Rings of Power failed to engage me as a viewer, especially that first episode. You ever been looking at some shit and like you just looking at some shit? It's not bringing you in. The characters are not that engaging. And that's not my fault. I think that's the fault of the storytellers, because I don't know the stories. I don't know the lore. So I'm a little bit confused of what's going on. You got elves in the high tower. So me being a casual viewer, I just wanted you to engage me with this new story, because this is a Lord of the Rings prequel. I know that. So they can't use anything from the Peter Jackson movies, the Tolkien ones. So they have to kind of go off on their own lore. So I need you in these first 2 hours, these first 2 episodes to hook me, to keep me coming back week after week. And me being a Lord of the Rings casual viewers, they did not capture that. You know, the characters were boring. They were boring. Everybody was boring. I didn't latch on to any characters in this Lord of the Rings 2 shows. I was bored the entire way. They had some action scenes that were sufficient, but they wasn't that quite engaging. They're just fighting to be fighting. There's a lot of exposition that I'm confused on. I don't know what's going on, and maybe I should do my Lord of the Rings research. That's just me. I know people are deep into the Lord. They can name you off all the castles, the high castles, and they can nerd out Sauron and all that shit. But as a casual viewer, who is this made for? Is it made for the casual viewers or the diehard Lord of the Rings fan? I think there has to be a mix, and I think Peter Jackson did that very well with his movies. Fellowship is my favorite out of all of them. Fellowship of the Rings by Peter Jackson. It had a reality. It was a simple tale. They engaged you with these characters, and they took you on a journey. This just seemed like I'm looking at something. And as I say, how beautiful the special effects is, I prefer to look at House of the Dragon. I know this is a little bit more fantasy, and I would say House of the Dragons is a little bit more gritty and rated R. And I like looking at that better, because sometimes the backgrounds are so beautiful, but sometimes the comp and the CG looks a little bit fake, and it takes me out of it a little bit. Even though I can see all this money of these artists on screen, it's just something that's almost CW-ish to it. I hate to say that, but it does. Like House of Dragons, I would say their dragons sometimes look, you know what I'm saying, out of play a little bit when they're far away. You can see the comp a little bit, but when they're up close and they're breathing fire, it's on. And speaking of House of Dragons engaged me right from the first episode. I didn't know anything about these characters because it's a prequel to Game of Thrones, but as soon as it came in, you know, they had jousting, an exciting joust match. They had this duality and this legacy going on with the king and his daughter, you know, him trying to have a son, and this apart with the baby. Oh my fucking God. And then episode 3, it just starts off rain and fire. It's just engaging. I'm engaged with the characters. Daemon Targaryen is that dude. I want to see where he goes. You know, yeah, the girl who rallied to dragon, I'm forgetting her name right now, is engaging. Her story is kind of engaging, and they skip parts of time in each House of the Dragon. I think this last episode, 3 or 4 years have passed by. It's like, oh shit, this is going down. Then a war happened. There's a lot that's happening very quickly, but I'm totally engaged to House of the Dragons more so than I am the Ring of Power. Now that can change. It's only 2 episodes, but I'm disappointed that you couldn't grasp my attention in 2 episodes. You know, I need to feel, you know, I'm only gonna be watching Rings of Power now because it's Lord of the Rings, really, because those 2 episodes didn't engage me. I know a lot of people say, yeah, just like this is the same Star Wars thing. I love being in this world. Yes, I love being in the Tolkien world, but if the story's not engaging, you know what I'm saying, you're just watching some shit. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I was just watching some shit. Like I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't get behind any motivations of the characters. That's just me coming as a casual viewer. I know it's a lot more nerdy people that know way more about the Lord of the Rings lore than me, but right now I'm rolling with the House of Dragon, son. And they got the Black Targaryen in there, you know what I'm saying? They got black elves, and people was losing their shit because there was black elves in the Lord of the Rings or wherever the fuck. What about the fucking red dragons and shit? Like, this is all made up. Like, who cares? Well, anyways, that's just my quick thoughts on Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragons. I'm leaning more towards House of the Dragons. It engaged me more. I'm more enthralled with the story. I'm still not giving up on Rings of Power yet. Maybe it'll get better, and maybe I will understand it more if I watch it. And maybe y'all can just educate me on what's going on in the Rings of Power, because I'm a little bit bored and lost. What y'all guys think of these two shows, Ring of Power and the House of Dragons? Let me know y'all thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure you go ahead and hit me that like button. And if you really like this content, consider subscribing to the Q Review family. And don't just stare at it, eat it. Peace.
I'm out cold, you hoes been exposed. Walk up on you slow with the flow and unload. You got more left for dead on the road. I strode when your car got